What's up? I'm Juanita, but most people know me as Noonie. Thank you all for joining me and welcome to Waiting to Release. I started Waiting to Release with Juanita because I realized I was carrying things that were too heavy to hold in, and I felt I needed a space I could release in. For years I have carried pain, disappointment, heartbreak, fear, and the pressure of always being strong. From relationships and motherhood to entrepreneurship and healing, I found myself waiting for closure, for peace, for answers, for the right time to let go. One day I realized healing doesn't begin when life becomes perfect. Healing begins when you're willing to release what you've been carrying. This podcast isn't about pretending to have all the answers. It's about creating a space where I can have real conversations, grow, and remind myself that it's okay to let go of what no longer serves me. If my release helps someone choose peace over pain, hope over fear, and healing over hurt, then this podcast has fulfilled its purpose. Now let's get into it. Who am I? For a long time, I became known as the strong one, the one who could figure it out, the one who always made things happen, the one people could call when they needed help. And here I am, raising 4 children, being a wife with no ring, working, taking care of my home, building businesses, showing up for family, making memories, creating events, and pouring into everybody around me. From the outside, I know it looked like I had it all together. A lot of people have actually told me I was goals, mother goals, relationship goals, you name it. They just said goals. But what people didn't see was everything I was carrying behind the closed doors. I carried disappointment. I carried betrayal. I carried heartbreak. I carried fear. I carried anxiety. I carried depression. I carried expectations. I carried responsibilities. And I carried the pressure of always having to be strong. And somewhere along the way, I stopped checking on myself. I was literally surviving instead of living. Recently, my life changed. A relationship that had been a part of my life for over 18 years came to an end. And it wasn't just losing a relationship, it was grieving the future I thought I was building. It was grieving the version of myself that kept hoping things would change. It was grieving what my children deserved. It was grieving who I thought someone else would become. And if I'm honest, it's still days I don't know how to keep smiling. As I release, some people are going to call me strong. Some people are going to call me dumb. Some people are going to say, girl, I would have left the first time. And maybe you would have. Maybe you wouldn't. Some people might even say, that could never be me. And that's okay. We're all looking through the lens of our own experiences. But until you've lived someone else's life, carried their responsibilities, loved the way they loved, or hoped the way they hoped, it's easy to say what you would have done. This podcast isn't about convincing anyone that my choices was right or that my choices was wrong. And I'm not telling my story to be judged or to be pitied. It's about telling my truth, owning my journey, learning from it, and finally releasing everything I've been carrying. I'm releasing anger, guilt, shame, fear, expectations, my relationship, the version of myself that I have outgrown. I want to talk about some of the things I experienced in my relationship. And again, I'm not here to seek sympathy and not to make anyone choose sides, but to speak my truth, live in my truth. And it's crazy because until I wrote down and spoke all the things I actually went through out loud, it made me realize just how much I had accepted fighting for love. There are parts of my story I've kept quiet about for a long time. You know, my family don't know, my parents don't know, my kids don't know, friends don't know. And I just feel that silence is what has kept me stuck. Not because what I went through didn't hurt, but because I was trying to move on with life. With the it happened, I took him back. So if I'm gonna forgive him, I need to move on mentality. But inside, I was breaking because forgiveness doesn't automatically erase the trauma. You know, I forgave someone and I still had to heal from what they did to me. And there are wounds that don't disappear just because I decided to stay. For years, I convinced myself I was okay. I smiled. I went to work. I raised my children. And I showed up for everybody as me. But when I got home and the noise stopped, I was carrying a weight nobody could see. I had accepted things I never imagined I would have to accept. I was just like some of you. Could never be me. But the one thing I never seen was me staying after he had a baby on me. Yeah, you heard me right. And not one, but multiple. I accepted multiple outside children with multiple I'm going to say women, to respect the kids who may grow up and one day see this. And I want to be clear. Those children were never the problem. The betrayal from their father and the disrespect from their mothers was. But once I decided to stay, I made the decision that I wasn't going to punish innocent children for adult decisions. And yeah, he had them on me, but it was me who made them a part of our family. Me who introduced them to my children, and me who invited them into our home. Even when he didn't know if he was going to claim them or not. I welcomed them. I loved them. I treated them like they were my own because that's who I am. But of course, while I was trying to build a blended family, while I was trying to create peace, while I was trying to prove that love could overcome anything, he was still lying, still cheating, still sleeping with the mothers of those children, still entertaining different hoes. And nah, it wasn't just one hoe. It was different hoes. It became a pattern. Different lies, but of course, the same pain for me. Yet, to me, he was still making promises he never intended to keep. And the crazy part, I had already stretched my heart farther than I ever thought possible. You know, I had already forgiven things I said I'd never forgive. And somehow he still chose to play in my face. And that kind of betrayal changes you. It makes you replay conversations in your head, looking for the moment everything went wrong. And if you've ever been there, you know that's a exhausting way to live. And here's the part people don't see. I wasn't only dealing with betrayal inside my home. There were fake pages, Instagram pages, bitches watching me, sending me messages, commenting on pictures, keeping up with my life while secretly being connected to the man I'm trying to build a future with. Like, imagine waking up every day to another message from a fake page. Like, these bitches was for real stalking me on social media to the point they started reaching out to people I'm connected to pass along messages. People that I didn't even want to know my business, period. But they thinking, oh, she be around them, so they know what's going on. Started calling them or reaching out to them, saying, oh, you know I'm messing with him. Can you let her know? Yeah, that's another story for another time. But all of that, I started living in survival mode, wondering who was lying, wondering what was real, wondering what I was going to find out next. And every time his phone rang, of course, I'm wondering. Every time he left the house, I'm wondering. Every time he's smiling at his phone, I'm wondering. And I stopped feeling safe, physically and emotionally. You know, I never knew what was waiting for me next. And after a while, again, I wasn't living, I was just surviving. And survival mode is dangerous because eventually dysfunction starts to feel normal. I became so used to disappointment that I expected it. So used to the lies, I stopped believing every word. And so used to forgiving that I forgot I deserved better. I even started questioning my own intuition at one point. Like, I would know something wasn't right, but I talked myself out of it. But I was still questioning everything. One thing I can say, it never made me question my worth. Like, I know that sounds weird to people. People always think if you know your worth, you know you deserve better, you'll do this and do this. I've always known the kind of woman I am. I know my heart. I know my morals. I know what I brought to that relationship. And what hurt wasn't thinking someone else was better than me. Because to be honest, I feel like all them hoes is hoes. Like, I feel like they beneath me. So it was never about them. And if you're watching, trust me, it was never about you. It was more so trying to understand how he could have loyalty, peace, a family, and a woman who loved him wholeheartedly and still choose to betray me. I spent more time questioning his decision than I ever questioned my value. Because the truth is, cheating doesn't automatically mean something was missing from me. It was something that was missing in the person that was doing the betrayal. That realization changed everything for me. Like, I stopped carrying the responsibility for choices that were never mine to own. I realized his actions reflected his character, not my value. And that was one of the first things in my healing. The hardest part wasn't just the cheating. It was realizing I had become so used to surviving betrayal that I started to feel numb. Like, every time something happened, I realized it didn't even hurt no more. It was like, damn, again. And of course, he would say he made a mistake. But eventually I had to ask myself, how many mistakes become a lifestyle? How many chances become me giving you permission? How many tears do you cry before you realize God isn't asking you to keep enduring this? I started to realize he was asking me to walk away. And for years, I ignored my spirit. I ignored what my spirit was trying to tell me. Every red flag, every disappointment, every sleepless night, every broken promise. I kept praying, hoping, and believing that things would change. I loved hard. I forgave often. I gave chance after chance because I believed in restoration. I believed people could change if they wanted to. But there comes a point when God starts speaking louder than your feelings. And I remember asking God over and over, why am I still here? Why does this keep happening to me? When is it going to get better? And instead of changing my situation, God started changing my perspective. Like, he wasn't telling me to fight harder. He wasn't telling me to love harder. He wasn't telling me to sacrifice more. And it's crazy because I just started hearing, and I feel like God just kept telling me, let go. Like, he kept whispering, let go. And at first, I thought letting go meant I was giving up. But God showed me that sometimes letting go isn't giving up, it's being obedient. Um, and sometimes I prayed for a sign, and God has been sending them for years. I just kept asking for another one because I was hoping, answers changed. There were things my heart kept trying to excuse that my spirit could no longer survive. My spirit was tired. Tired of carrying pain. Tired of carrying disappointment. Tired of carrying betrayal. Tired of pretending I was okay. Tired of accepting things that God never intended for me to keep carrying. And one day I realized something. God wasn't removing me from our relationship to punish me. He was removing me to protect me. Because what my heart wanted to hold on to was destroying my peace. And my spirit it simply couldn't take it anymore. And walking away wasn't the easiest thing I've ever done. It was one of the hardest. But every day I chose peace over chaos, healing over hurt, and obedience over fear. I get a little stronger. And here's what God has, been teaching me. Like, someone else's inability to be faithful has nothing to do with my value. Someone else's choices do not determine my worth. Someone else's lack of integrity does not erase everything that I am. Healing has been teaching me to separate his actions from my identity. Because for a long time, I carried his decisions like they were my failures. And they weren't. So today, healing looks different than I expected. Healing isn't waking up one morning and magically feeling okay. Healing is just choosing myself every single day. Healing is going to therapy. Healing is praying even when I don't understand. Healing is me reading my Bible instead of replaying old conversations. Healing is, of course, spending intentional time with my children. Healing is building businesses that I almost gave up on. Healing is creating instead of constantly crying. Healing is learning to sit in silence without needing answers. Healing is allowing myself to just laugh again without feeling guilty or hurt. Healing is forgiving without reopening the door. Healing is accepting that closure doesn't always come from the person that hurt me. Sometimes closure comes from deciding I've suffered enough. Some days are hard, and as you can see, some days I still cry. Some days I still get angry. Some days I still have questions that may never be answered. But even those moments don't define me anymore. Because every day I choose peace. I get a little stronger. Every day I choose healing. And I become a little freer. Like, every day I choose to release. I become more like the woman God has been calling me to be all along. And maybe that's why this podcast had to be created. Because I know I'm not the only woman who's been carrying things she never deserved to carry. So yeah, I know I probably didn't release as much as what you all were expecting. But this is the first episode. So I want to say thank you all for spending this time with me. If today's episode spoke to you, I want you to remember this. You don't have to carry everything forever. Your release doesn't make you weak. It makes room for your healing. I'm Juanita, and until next Wednesday, keep healing, keep growing, and don't be afraid to release. Thank you all. Have a great night.